So we are on lesson 3 today, and what we are going to do is we're going to look at references that I'm using for the study, and we're going to look at some history. And in your handout, if I can, you do have the old one. We're going to spend a lot of time with this diagram today. So go ahead and turn to this diagram from your first set of handouts, and you're going to be annotating that. Okay? And then on the next page, you will see I have included for you some maps. There's 2 maps too. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to put Daniel in context of where we are in time and where we are in space. That's why we have timelines and maps. So we can do that. Okay? All right. So we're going to look at the references and the history. Then we're going to look at where the location of these main events are. And then we're going to talk about some exceptions. There are parts of Daniel that are in the Catholic Bible that are not in the Protestant Bible. And we're going to talk about those exceptions a little bit and why we're not going to study those in detail. And then we're going to talk about who was Daniel, and we should get into Daniel 1. So that's what I've got planned for us to do today. Okay, any questions? We all together on that? Okay, so last week, however, I mentioned the trinity of sin. Sin, trespass, and iniquity. And I got some real blank stares from some of you guys. Like, what is he talking about? So I thought, let's cover that today. So there's no handout for this. This you'll have to take on your own sheet of paper and your own notes. If you want to copy any of this down. But I wanted to show you the main difference between these 3 because we're going to be talking about it throughout the whole study. Sin is comprised of 3 parts. Sin, S-I-N, trespasses, and iniquities. And they're all different. Sin, okay, and I'm taking this from Hosea chapter 2, verses 1 to 13. So if you want to read about it in the Bible, you can do that. All right. Hosea 2, 1 through 13 explains these 3 parts of sin. Sin is basically when you can't reach the target that you're shooting for. That's falling short of the target. And I've drawn this little diagram here, where here's the target, and no matter how hard you try to hit it, you just don't have the strength to get there. Okay, you can't do it on your own. You can't get there on your own. All right? And Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and come short." That's this word. All right, coming short or falling short. So we cannot account for our sin because we don't have the strength to do that. Someone else has to get us there. That's where Jesus Christ comes in. So that's the first part of sin. The second part is trespass. And trespass means is here's your target and you're shooting all around it, but refuse to shoot at the target. You choose a false path. That's trespass. Okay? So trespass is when you cross a boundary. You go where you shouldn't go, and you make a deliberate choice to go away or against someone. So that's the second part of sin. Okay? And you can read about that in Psalm 32:1. The third part is iniquity. And iniquity is when you pervert or twist or distort something. Now see, you're supposed to be shooting an arrow at the target and you throw an axe at it instead. That's a perversion of what you were supposed to do. So I give you these little diagrams so you have a mental picture of what it looks like. Okay? So sin is where you can't get there and you constantly fall short. You come short. Trespass is where you choose a path other than the one God would have you follow. And iniquity is when you distort it or pervert it, like the message does, and the purpose-driven life does.
So 2 and 3 are not sin, or a distinction in name only?
Sin, This is, you could say this is sin little letter, and then there's sin big letter. Okay? They're all part of sin. And I'm going to prove that to you with this scripture. He was pierced through for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities, but the Lord caused the iniquities of us all to fall on him, yet he himself bore the sin of many and interceded for the transgressors. All those words are there. And who took care of all those words? Jesus. Bingo. So Jesus solves all three of the sin questions. Okay? Jesus was pierced for our transgressions, so we can take the transgressions away. He was crushed for our iniquities, we can take the iniquities away. And he bore the sin of many on the cross, and we can take that one away. Jesus is the solution for all aspects of sin. There's a really nice little diagram here that illustrates that. Okay? Now, let me read you this Psalm 51. Most of you know Psalm 51, verse 10. All of you know that verse. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. You know that verse, but I want to read the verses in front of that. Psalm 51, 1 through 4 and 10. Here's what it says. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions, wash away all my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. See them? They're all there. Iniquity, transgression, and sin. They're all there. All right? For I know my transgressions. Yeah, you know it because you're the one who chose the path to go against God. All right? And my sin is always before me. I know I'm not good enough to do it myself. This is a great verse here for that. All right? Against you, you only have I sinned. All sin is against God. I might offend Bruce or I might offend Wes, but it's offending God when I offend one of his children and done what is evil in your sight. So you are right in your verdict and justified when you judge. So that's a really good verse. And then the plea at the end is, please, Lord, create within me a pure heart and renew a straight spirit. Straight at the target, no iniquity, no twisting, no false path. Okay? And with the right ammunition. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up in front so that we all have when I say sin, I'm talking about falling short. When Daniel talks about iniquity, he's talking about someone who's distorting the truth. All right? When Nebuchadnezzar confesses to God that he has transgressed, he's confessing he took a false path. That's why I want you to know the differences, because they're not all the same. Okay? Most people go through life thinking iniquity, sin, and trespass is all the same thing. It's not.
So iniquity is misinformation.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It's very popular today.
Yep. And there's the answer. That's the answer. That answers every one of them according to this verse in Isaiah 53, 5 through 6. Okay? All right, any questions about sin? Are we clear on that? All right, perfect. Now let's look at the key references. In your first handout, they're listed for you. So if you go to those first handouts, what page is it? It's the one before that, I think.
Oh, on that chart.
No, it's part of the chart. Okay, it's on the bottom, underneath the little diagram here that you had. It's on the bottom there. All right, I want to talk about a few of these key references. So these are key apocalyptic passages. What does apocalyptic mean? Revealing what?
Revealing truth?
No. It's revealing the complete destruction of the world. The apocalypse is the end of the world. So apocalyptic literature is talking about or revealing what's going to happen in the complete destruction of the world. Daniel is apocalyptic. It's talking about what's going to happen at the end, okay? As are many others. And these are the references here. There are key apocalyptic passages in the Bible. And these are listed in one of your handouts there. Isaiah 24:27, 32 through 35, Jeremiah 33, Ezekiel 37 through 39, the book of Daniel, Joel 3, Zechariah 9 through 14, Matthew 24 through 25, Mark 13, Luke 21. What are Matthew 24, 25, Mark 13, and Luke 21 called together? What are those called? Mark, Luke, and John are the gospel, but those particular verses have another name. They're called the Olivet Discourse. Yeah, you remember that now. Yeah, okay. And what does Jesus talk about in the Olivet Discourse? The coming of the end of the age. It's apocalyptic. That's his apocalyptic address to his disciples. Now, after you've read all these things, then you're ready to read Revelation. I get people coming through, oh yeah, I know all about the end times. I've read Revelation. I said, oh, you have? Have you read 1 Corinthians 15? What does that have to do with Revelation? Everything. Okay? Everything. What about Matthew 24? Does that have to do with Revelation? Yes, it does. These give you the tools to understand Revelation. And if you take these out of order or omit these from your mind as you read Revelation, you'll get the wrong answer. Every single time. The Lord put them all there for a reason, and he put them in that order for a reason. The order in which you read prophecy is very, very important. All right? Okay. So here's the references, and you've got a list of these. And other authors worth reading, B. Graham, who's that? Billy Graham. All right? J.D. Pentecost, Dwight Pentecost. Okay? M. Rosenthal, Marvin Rosenthal. Richard Van Kampen, John MacArthur. A lot of you know these authors. You've read their works. Okay? Now, if you want a pre-tribulation view, read Graham and Pentecost. If you want a pre-wrath view, read Van Kampen and Rosenthal. If you want to look at the organization and structure, read MacArthur. It's about the end times. All right? Now, these are the ones, and the Dead Sea Scrolls. The 1955 discovered Dead Sea Scrolls, there's 8 manuscripts there that address these things. There's the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of them. Now, yes, I have read personally all these books. That's why they're on here. I wouldn't put them on here. There's books I've left off of here. Okay? Tim LaHaye's books I would use to line a cat box. Okay? Or a bird cage, because that's all Tim LaHaye's works are worth. Right? Jerry Jenkins, same thing. So I don't recommend those to you. Best commentary, if you want a commentary that talks about end times, is Matthew Henry. Matthew Henry's commentary. Now, it's written in Old English, but it's a really, really good commentary. All right? And these are the ones that I think are the key. Barclay, the Hebrew Greek Study Bible, which I use. Matthew Henry, Walvoord and Zuck. Walvoord and Zuck were professors at Dallas Theological Seminary. And they put together the Bible Knowledge Commentary along with Dwight Pentecost. And they present alternate views of end times things, but they do a very good job of handling Daniel. So if you want some commentaries, you have the references in your materials. All right, so now let's talk about history. Now, history is looking backward to the future of those who lived in the past. I'll let you think about that for a minute, all right? Let's do it this way. I'm going to take Daniel, who lived in the past, and I'm going to use Pete as the person living in the future. Okay? Time goes from the past to the future. Daniel is in Pete's past. Pete is in Daniel's future. And I'm going to pick a point in between that is in Daniel's future, but our past. Does everybody see that? So if Daniel makes a prophecy, Pete can look at, did that happen in history? And if it did, we know Daniel's a true prophet. And any other prophecies that Daniel made beyond Pete's future, he can trust those. Because Daniel makes prophecies that reach from Daniel to beyond Pete. Okay? In the near field, the midfield, and the far field. Okay? So we're looking backward. Pete is looking backward at an event that was in the future of Daniel, who lived in the past. So this is a good picture here for you to keep in mind. So we're looking back into the past to see if Daniel was right about the things he predicted in his future that history has already had. Does that make sense? Everybody with me? Okay, I think the diagram helps understand the words. Now, if this event is the cross, Daniel is looking forward to the cross. We can look backward to the cross because that's in our past, but in Daniel's future. All right? Okay. What did I just do there? What is that thing? Let me do it again. What is that thing? That's the New Jerusalem. That is the cube of the New Jerusalem described in Revelation. And that's coming from our future. It's out here somewhere. Okay, it hasn't happened yet. Okay. So does everybody understand the time? What Daniel's future could have been our past as well as our future. All right. So pull this out, and I hope you have a pen, because as I annotate mine, I want you to annotate yours. Okay? If you didn't bring it, I'm sorry. You got to bring your previous things with you. All right? Do you have any extras, Pete?
Yeah, we got some extras.
Who needs an extra? Hey, if he's got it, you may as well use it.
Use it. Thank you. Anybody else?
Anybody else need one? Okay. So let's see what we have here. Up on the top is time, okay, before Christ. So Christ is in the future of all this. All of this occurred long before Christ, right? So this is 950 BC, approaching the birth of Christ, and then we go to AD. Okay? Is everybody with me so far? All right. So the first event I want to talk about is Solomon. Who was Solomon? David's son. What else do we know about him?
He was the one that was authorized to build the temple.
To build the temple. What else?
700 wives, 300 concubines.
He liked the ladies. All right, let me put it that way. He liked the ladies, and that was his downfall. Okay? But he also was the last king of the United Kingdom when it was all together. Okay? When he died, things were split into a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. What was the northern kingdom called? Yeah? Which was which? Israel was to the north, Judah was to the south. The capital city of the northern kingdom was what? Samaria. The capital city of the southern kingdom was Jerusalem. All right, very good. Okay. So Solomon died around 950. And when he died, we were split into a northern and southern kingdom. Okay. And those are Israel and Judah. Judah consists of which two tribes? Benjamin and Judah. All right, all right, all right. What about Israel, the other 10? Okay. Now there were prophets, Obadiah and Joel, who were talking about Assyria coming to take Israel into captivity. They were called from Judah to go up to Israel and prophesy to them, warning them that their sin was going to be visited by God, and God is called the God of hosts. You've heard that term, right? God of hosts. Do you know what hosts means in Hebrew? It means army. He's the God of armies. The army he sent to capture Israel was the Assyrian army. Where was the Assyrian army based? In Nineveh, the capital city of Assyria. Who wrote about Nineveh? Jonah and Nahum. Okay? Here's Jonah here, and here's Nahum here. So Jonah was sent to Nineveh, and he didn't want to go. So he ran away. That didn't work too well for him, did it? No. So he ended up going and preaching to them, and what happened? They repented, and they accepted God among their other gods. All right? And then Nahum comes along a few years later, and they had turned back away from God again. All right? So Jonah is preaching that Assyria is going to come to take Israel away in Nineveh. Nahum, which is Jonah part 2, talks more about what's happening in Nineveh when they return to their sin. Now, we've gone from 950 BC to 650 BC, a period of 300 years. Israel falls to Assyria. Where does Assyria take them? No, the Babylonians took Judah to Babylon. The Assyrians took them to Assyria. Come on, guys. This isn't hard. This part isn't, all right? Where's Assyria? Uzbekistan, Uzbekistan, Tubekistan, all the Astans that we know of today, okay? You know what did Hitler do? The most infamous thing Hitler did. What did he do? He killed a lot of Jews, right? How many did he kill? 6 million. You know he doesn't hold the record for killing Jews? You know who does? Joseph Stalin. He killed 12 million Jews. You know where those Jews came from? It was those Jews that the Assyrians took into the Soviet Union. That's where they came from. Okay? So, when Solomon died, the kingdom of Israel was created, and Israel fell when Assyria invaded and took those 10 tribes to the north. Judah was still there. Judah was alone now, with Benjamin and Judah. The prophets that are speaking against Judah are Habakkuk and Zephaniah. And they're telling Judah, hey guys, same thing that happened to Israel, it's going to happen to you, except this time, it ain't going to be the Assyrians. It's going to be the Babylonians. Okay? So the Babylonians came to Judah 3 times and hauled off people back to Babylon. The first time was Nebuchadnezzar came to Judah and hauled off a bunch of people, including our man Daniel. That's why I'm doing this with you, so you understand where this comes from. So Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were 4 of the Hebrew children captured by Nebuchadnezzar and taken back to Babylon. Everybody with me so far? Okay. There were 2 other exiles. In the second exile, Nebuchadnezzar came back from war, and he took Ezekiel with him. And Ezekiel's right here. You can see how this is all making sense. Now, when Nebuchadnezzar took Daniel, Shadrach, Abednego, and the others, he also took something else. What else did he take? The gold utensils from the temple. And he carried them where? To his temple in Babylon. Now, the reason why that is important is a successor to Nebuchadnezzar, his grandson called Belshazzar, took those golden temple articles and sinned with them. And that was the handwriting on the wall. That's in Daniel. We're going to read about that. Okay? So I just want you to see how all this fits in together. When Judah falls, the Babylonians haul them off to Babylon. But Babylon was only temporary. Now, Daniel was one of the young ones who was there and taken, and he was there during the entire Babylonian captivity. Now, at the end of the Babylonian captivity, Belshazzar, his grandson, was celebrating in the temple with the golden articles from Jerusalem when Persia invaded and killed him. Daniel was still there. And he was still part of the Magi, the magicians, for the Persian king and the Median king. What were their names? Cyrus the Persian, remember Cyrus? And Darius the Mede. Okay? So Darius and Cyrus are in here. Now, Cyrus is the one who told Nehemiah and Ezra, you can go back and rebuild your temple. All right? There's Ezra, and there's Nehemiah. See, guys, it all fits together. Okay? The whole thing, all these disjointed books that you see in the Bible, you think, it's all together. It's all a continuum. It's all by design. It all fits in to history. This is where the captives return to rebuild the temple and the door to the city. Daniel and Ezekiel are prophesying about that in their prophets. Then Persia took control. Now, coming after Persia was Alexander the Great. So we do get Alexander the Great in there, but not yet. Now, what happens in the second chapter of Daniel? What is the second chapter of Daniel about? Of what?
Gold, silver.
Okay, not the golden statue. That's a different statue. All right? So this is going to then talk about the golden statue. The head was gold, the chest and arms were silver, and then we had bronze. The head represents Babylon. The silver represents Persia. The brass or bronze represents Greek. See, it all fits in there. So Daniel, where's our man Daniel? Did I cover him up? All right, so Daniel right here, who's right under my finger, is talking about this forward, beginning in the second chapter. So does everybody see how this is fitting together? Okay? Great. So this is the area of most of what Daniel writes about, talks about, is what happens in Babylon. Okay? And then this is the Persian control when Ezra and Nehemiah lead the people back. And in between there is Esther, who is the wife of one of the Persian kings. So I want you to have all this stuff fits together. All right. Now, at the end of this, what happens to that statue? It's destroyed by what? What rock? The rock made uncut by human hands. Okay? The rock of God, Jesus Christ. Okay? So he's out here in the latter days. Okay? And that's where we're going to get Israel reassembled in the latter days. And we're going to see some references to that in Daniel. All right, so that's why I wanted to go through that timeline with you so that you have that history lesson and you've got it all in front of you there. Okay? Now, if it will help you, there's a lot of overlap, I will make a picture of this slide with all my notes on it and bring it for you. Would that help you? Yeah? Anybody who doesn't want it? Sure you don't want it? Okay. Okay. Now, I want to look at this little box of time between 550 and 500. We're going to blow it up here. All right? And this is the Persian kings, Cyrus, Cambyses, and Darius the Mede. And these are also talked about by Daniel as well. Okay? All right. Does anyone have any questions about the history of how this all fits in together? And you know what we really did is we just didn't do the history of Daniel. We did the history of all the prophets and where they fit in relative to one another. So now you know how that all comes together. All right, you have this map. So go ahead and pull this map out because you might want to put some annotations on this too. Bruce, you with me okay? All right. So this is the Mediterranean Sea. This is Egypt. Okay. What is this river here? Huh? The Nile? You're still in denial, Tobin? Yeah. Does everybody see this shape here, this delta shape? This is the Nile Delta. This is the Nile River. Okay? Over here we have the Persian Gulf and the Tigris and Euphrates River. And all of this action occurs between the Nile River and the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Okay? So I want to emphasize what I'm going to show you now is from around the time of Micah, 740 BC. This is where Israel is located, and this is the capital city of Samaria. This is Judah and its capital city of Jerusalem. Over here is Assyria and Nineveh, which we've talked about. Now, when the Assyrians left Nineveh to come to invade Israel, they didn't come this way. Why? Yeah. Have you ever been here before? I have. There ain't nothing there. There's nothing there, including water. There ain't any. There's nothing there. They went this way following the rivers and down the coast. So that was the path of invasion. Over here is Babylon. Do you think Babylon went across like this? They went like this. Okay? They always followed the rivers. Keep that in mind, because that's what they needed to feed their armies. So there's Israel, and this is the path the Assyrians took, and they invaded from the south. Now that always puzzles people, because the Assyrians to the north, why did they invade from the south? Your Bible's wrong. No, it's not. They came down the coast, They replenished themselves, and then they came up and attacked Israel from the south. And they hauled off and put all of those 10 tribes of Jews up here in the former Soviet Union, where Stalin massacred 10 to 12 million of them. That's where they came from. They're not the 10 lost tribes of Israel. They're the 10 dead tribes of Israel, for the most part. Now, Babylon is here, and then they were hauled back to Babylon. And if you read Esther, they talk about Susa. Susa is the capital city. There were two capital cities of Babylon, Susa and Babylon. Now, this is a modern day map. This is the Mediterranean, and this is the Mediterranean. Israel and Judah, Israel and Judah. So to put you in reference, okay? So there's Israel, and here's Israel here. And this is where Hamas is focused in Gaza and the West Bank. Hezbollah is focused in the West Bank, which is also called Samaria and Judea. The Houthis are in Yemen. Iran, who is the sponsor for the Houthi terrorists, the Hezbollah terrorists, and the Hamas terrorists, is located here, separated from Israel by Iraq. And this is Afghanistan over here. Now, most of the Islamic religion is divided into two major sects. Incidentally, they teach that Christianity is divided into two major sects. Who do they say the two sects of Christianity are? Catholicism and Protestantism. That's what the Islam people teach their kids. All right? There's the Shia, which is in green, and the Sunni, which is in red. Ali was a blood nephew of Muhammad. Abu Bakr was his father-in-law, who established the caliphs. So if Israel wasn't there, the Sunni and the Shia would be fighting one another, which they've done for hundreds and hundreds of years. But I just wanted you to see how this all arrays, okay? And these countries around, mostly Sunni. 85% of all Muslims are Sunni. 15 are Shia. In the United States, almost 100% of the Muslims in the United States are Sunni. Here's Israel in yellow, Lebanon in green. When they say, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's the chant of the brain-dead American students on our college campuses who don't realize what they're saying is they want to wipe Israel off the map and commit genocide. And they're accusing Israel of genocide. But that's the river, and that's the sea, and that's the thin piece of territory that Israel currently occupies, with a piece chunked out for the West Bank, and a piece chunked out for Lebanon, and a piece chunked out for Gaza. Very little left. Now, the chant from the river to the sea calls for the genocide of the Jews. So if you read this stuff about the Jews are committing genocide on the Palestinians, if the Jews had been committing genocide on the Palestinians, all the Palestinians would be dead already. And they're not. They have flourished. There's millions more of them now than there were a few years ago. Okay. I don't know if I gave you this map or not. Probably. Is it there? No. All right. So here again, our key. Here's the Mediterranean Sea. Okay? And this shows the captivity of Israel and Judah. The purple trail that you see here, all right, is Assyria taking Israel into the north country. And the green is Babylon taking Judah into captivity in Babylonia. And you can see, like I told you, they went up and down because this is all desert. You know what this is called there? It's called the empty quarter. Why do you think it's called the empty quarter? Because anybody who would venture in there is empty in their upper quarter. There is nothing there. Actually, there is something there. I spent a little bit of time there, and there's little camels. They're about that tall. They're solid black, and they have 2 humps. And they're very, very rare. That's the only part of the world that they occur in, is in the empty quarter of Saudi Arabia. And the other thing that lives there that I saw a lot were falcons. So this is the Assyrians grabbing the people from Israel and taking them into this area here in red. This is the same map projected here with today's countries. So the Jews were taken into Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Iran, and so forth. That's where they came from. The Assyrian diaspora is called the remnant. Okay? The remnant. When they talk about a remnant will be left, that's the Assyrian diaspora. Now, Nebuchadnezzar, when he came, took Judah to Babylon and kept them intact. He didn't disperse them. Under Cyrus, they came back to rebuild Jerusalem. So when you read Nehemiah and you read Ezra, and you read about all those people who are rebuilding the city, that's the tribe of Judah and Benjamin. The other 10 are far and away to the north. All right. So if we take history and we combine it with location, it gives us the historical context of Daniel. I don't know if I included this for you, but I'm just going to give you a few dates. 605 BC is when Daniel is taken to Babylon. Who takes him to Babylon? Nebuchadnezzar. Excellent. And here's the tricky part. This is what confuses people. Babylon is a country, and Babylon is a city. So sometimes we get those messed up. Okay? Like New York. New York is a city. New York is also a state, right? Okay. This is a carving of the Assyrians hauling away the treasures from the temple as they take Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and a bunch of others over to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar then attacks a second time, and they take Ezekiel. If you want to read about this, read 2 Kings 24, and it will give you the biblical record of Nebuchadnezzar attacking Jerusalem and burning the city to the floor. So if you want the reference for that, it's 2 Kings 24, 10 through 16, if you want to study it some more. And this is when the temple was destroyed. In 539, Cyrus invaded and defeated Babylon. Then he allowed 50,000 Hebrews to return to Jerusalem, and they went with Zerubbabel, Ezra, and Nehemiah to return to the city. So if you read Ezra and Nehemiah, you'll get that history. The work was completed on the temple walls around 445. And this was the temple that they rebuilt. That's what it looked like. Okay? Then Philip and Alexander of Macedon, Alexander the Great, Philip the Greek was Alexander's father. They invaded and defeated the Medes and Persians and took over the Holy Land. And that's the famous fresco, mosaic, of Alexander the Great. Does anybody know what he died of? You're close. You're very close. Malaria. He went through India. And when he went through India, his doctors said, listen to this now. He died from the bad air. The word for bad is mal. The word for air is area. Mal-area. Malaria. That's where the word malaria comes from. Interesting, isn't it? I love languages. It's very interesting how all this stuff fits together. Then the Roman legion came. Then these guys showed up. And it was all she wrote. They just chewed up the Greeks. Take a steel sword against a bronze sword and see who lasts longer. Now, the toes and of iron and miry clay, that is still in the future. And we'll look at that when we get into Daniel 2. I think those 10 toes represent the Arab League. And I'll justify that when we get to that chapter. Not the League of European Union. All right, let's get these pictures off of here. Now I'm going to put a reference up here for you. This is a statue that Nebuchadnezzar dreamt of in chapter 2 of Daniel. Head of gold, chest and arms of silver, waist and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, feet and toes of miry clay and iron. Okay? I took his head off, didn't I? Let me put it back. That head represents this period of time when Babylon was in charge. That's the golden head. The silver, which we're going to move here, represents this period of time, all right, where Cyrus allowed Zerubbabel, Ezra, and Nehemiah to go back to the city and rebuild it. The bronze comes in here where Philip and Alexander of Macedon came in. The legs of iron comes in here with the Roman legion. And the toes of iron and miry clay, either the European Union. What is loan? L-O-A-N? The League of Arab Nations. Great. Does anybody know how many members there are currently in the European Union? There's 27. Do you know how many are in the League of Arab Nations? There are 10. How many toes you got? 27?
I lost one.
Too much information. Okay. We're going to learn all about that in Daniel 2. I just wanted you to see how it all fits in. And that's the miracle. It all fits in. Then in Daniel 7, if we decide to go that far, after we go through the first 6 chapters, we're going to see the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the 4th beast. And these guys represent Babylon, the Persian bear, and so forth. And then in Daniel 8, we see the ram and the goat. And all of that ties together if we get that far into that prophecy. But I just want you to see how it all comes together. Okay, this is Israel here. These are the 10 areas listed in the Bible as the 10 nations that will invade Israel. Okay? Magog, Meshech, Tubal, Babylon, Persia, the Greeks, Ethiopia, Libya, Turkey, and Armenia. Atheist, 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 Islamic, 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 atheist, Islamic. That's your 10 toes, brothers. Okay? It's not Britain, France, Norway, Denmark. It isn't those. And I'll substantiate that as we go forward. Okay, any questions? Now you know historically where this all fits together in time and in location.
John, was there an interplay between Judah and Israel versus the various minor or those prophets? Because some pertain to Israel and some pertain to Judah. Was there disagreements, if you know,
Yeah.
that existed within the tribes? And
Usually God called the prophets from Judah to go prophesy against Israel. And Israel didn't like that. They essentially told those guys, go home. We don't need you telling us what we should do. So there was friction, yes. Right now, any other questions?
Wait, sorry if you're going over this in the future, but what's the deal with the 10 toes? Like, what that happens in the future?
Yes, we're going to see that in Daniel chapter 2. When we go over the statue, it ends up with 10 toes, and a rock, uncut by human hands, smashes those 10 toes and obliterates it entirely,
Obliterates the statue entirely?
including the toes.
Okay.
It ends Gentile history.
And the rock is Jesus coming back?
Yes, it is.
so, John, you say that list of 10 were the 10 toes, so that represents that?
Yes, I am.
Why does it say the rock is uncut? What is that?
That's what the Bible says. That man didn't cut it. Man didn't carve the rock. God did.
The rock is God?
The rock is Christ. Wait till we get to Daniel 2 and the answer. I'm introducing it now.
Okay. That's why I didn't want to ask the original question.
No, ask it because we're going to discuss it several times.
Yeah.
And that's okay. No question. It's good to get it out, and that way you know that it's coming.
What's the point of it calling the rock uncut?
Uncut by human hands.
But we know it's not because it's Christ. Why say
But
that?
the reason why we say it's Christ is because we know it's uncut by human hands. Okay? All right. Any other questions?
That relief of Israel being parted off, where'd that come from? Like, where's that at? That picture?
From Syria.
It was pretty.
Yeah. Who's that guy?
Albert Einstein.
Right. And he said, question everything. So make sure if you have questions, like you think it might be too early, it's never too early. All right? Now, Acts 17, 10 through 11 says this. The brethren immediately sent away Paul and Silas by night unto Berea, who coming thither went into the synagogue of the Jews. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and searched or questioned the scriptures daily whether those things were so. So ask questions. Bible commands that. Do not accept what I say as truth. But don't you dare deny this is truth. Okay? All right. Exceptions. Because it's written in two languages, what are the two languages Daniel's written in? Aramaic and Hebrew. Okay? And it discusses history, looking back. It was prophetic in Daniel's day, but it's history in our day. So we can look back and see that golden head, which was Babylon, and ask ourselves, did, in fact, the Medes and Persians conquer Babylon? Because Daniel said they would. Did they? Yes, they did. Okay? Did the Greeks follow? Yes. So we can see historically everything in Daniel's future that is in our history is 100% correct. Therefore, if there's anything that Daniel says is going to happen and it ain't happened yet, is it going to happen? You betcha. Take it to the bank. It's going to happen because the historical record proves it. Some scholars say, well, Daniel couldn't have written that. He couldn't have known that. Daniel was a prophet. Of course he could know it. They say that must have been written after the events occurred. Well, when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1955, there were a lot of things that those were laid to rest. Okay? Now, in the 3rd century, some versions of Daniel, the book of Daniel, were longer in the Protestant Bible than they are today. And they remain that length in most versions of the Catholic Bible, or there may be some that don't have it. And those hidden books are called the Apocrypha. And it was 12 to 14 books written between 2 to 400 BC, and they're included in the 1611 King James Bible. And the only reason why I bring it up is because some of the parts of Daniel are included in that Apocrypha. And they've been taken out of the Bible we use. But the Catholics still consider it Scripture. Am I correct in that? Yes. Okay, good. The first one is called the Prayer of Azariah and the Song of the Three Holy Children. The three holy children are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and one of those is Azariah. And this is a prayer that supposedly he wrote while he was in the fiery furnace. Okay? And in that prayer, it says that the 4th person who showed up is an angel. And the Protestant church rejected that, because the Protestant church teaches that that 4th person was Jesus.
Son of man.
Huh?
Son of man. Didn't it say son of man?
Yes. So that's why that was excluded. Okay? Then there's Susanna and the elders. And that occurred before Daniel 1:1. And it's a story about a couple of elders who attempt to get a young woman to have sex with them through blackmail. And Daniel comes and reveals their lies and saves her virginity. The other one, called Bell and Dragon, is after Daniel 12:13. And Daniel's detective work reveals that an idol the priests were saying was consuming the sacrifices wasn't really there, and the priests themselves were stealing the money from the temple. Okay, graft and corruption. It's always throughout history. Those 3 books are not included in the Protestant version of Daniel, so we're not going to study them. We got enough with the chapters we have, so we're not going to worry about those. But I just want you to know that they're there. Okay? All right. So, the new handout that you received today, P8. Who authored the book of Daniel? Who authored the book of Daniel? Daniel. Who said Daniel? All right, do you have your Bible with you? Huh?
Yes.
Would you turn to Daniel 4 and read me verses 1 through 5?
King Nebuchadnezzar, to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Who?
King Nebuchadnezzar.
Who's writing that?
I would assume King Nebuchadnezzar.
Not Daniel. Okay, that's the other author of Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar's got some in there, all right, and he's in chapter 4. All right? So, who authored? Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, the 2 of them. And you can write that there in the space that I've written there for you. So, who was Daniel? You can read about that in 1 through 7. Now, first of all, let's look at this Nebuchadnezzar. Some parts of the Bible have it Nebuchadnezzar. Other parts have it Nebuchadrezzar. As you read your Bible, you'll see it changes. All right? That's because Nebuchadnezzar is in the Hebrew and Nebuchadrezzar is in the Babylonian. And there's one place in the Bible where he's referred to as Nabuchodonosor, which is the Aramaic. Those are all the same guy. It's just his name expressed in 3 different languages. Okay? So I'm John, Ivan, and Juan. Still me. Okay? Now, Let's look at the Aramaic for a minute. Nabu, Kaduri, Usur. Nabu means prophet. Kaduri means firstborn. Usar means presence. So Nebuchadnezzar was believed to be the firstborn prophet present on earth. Nebuchadnezzar was not only a king. This is something most people do not realize. He was also the high priest of the Chaldeans. He was the high priest of Assyria, not just their king. He was much more. All right, we're going to stop there. Because it's 5 after. You wanted me to stop around 8 o'clock, right? I can go longer?
Well, I have a question. I don't know if it's a good question.
Ask it. Let's see.
Firstborn prophet?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
The name Nebuchadnezzar, in his name, means that they believed he was the firstborn prophet present on earth.
Firstborn of his family? Firstborn?
The firstborn of creation. The people in Babylon worshiped Nebuchadnezzar as a god. Okay?
But was he actually a prophet?
Not a biblical prophet, an Assyrian prophet. Okay? Who is, I'm not going to say this right, Kim Il-jung, the leader of North Korea? How do you say his name? That guy. His name means prophet, firstborn, presence. That guy.
So the word prophet to North Koreans means?
One who foretells the future with the knowledge of God.
Okay.
They worship him in North Korea. They bow down before him. Who said that? All right. So Daniel, in Daniel 1, 1 through 7, was a Hebrew prince. What does prince mean? Of royal blood. So both of the authors of Daniel were of royal blood. Daniel was Hebrew, and Nebuchadnezzar was Assyrian. In fact, they were kind of equivalents in their own religious circles. Now, why was Daniel in Babylon? Do you mind reading for me?
I don't mind.
Would you read Kings 20, verses 12 through 18?
And it happened when Ben-Hadad heard the message, and he the kings were drinking at the command post. And they said that his servants get ready, and they got ready to attack the city. Suddenly a prophet approached King Ahab, king of Israel, saying, "Thus says the Lord, have you seen all the great magnitude? Behold, I will deliver it into your hand today, and you shall know that I am the Lord." So Ahab said, "By whom?" And he said, "Thus says the Lord, by the young leaders
Okay.
of the provinces." And then he said, "Who will set the battle in order?"
Okay, let me stop you a minute.
You.
Do me a favor and humor me and go to 2 Kings instead of 1 Kings? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. I didn't say it. I think that's a typo there. I left out the 2 Kings because that doesn't sound right.
No, it
Go ahead.
20.
Hopefully there's a 2 Kings 20, 12 through 18. If not, then I've screwed up the reference.
So you got it. Right. Up there it's not.
At that time, Barodach Baladan, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he heard that Hezekiah had been sick. And then Hezekiah was attended to them and showed them all the houses of his treasures.
Okay, stop. What did Hezekiah do? Yeah, look what I got. I got all this good stuff. And what were the Assyrians thinking? You got it now. So the reason why Daniel's in Babylon is because Hezekiah's got a big mouth. You see what I'm saying? Because when they came to get the treasures, Daniel was part of the treasure they took back. So Daniel's in Babylon because Hezekiah boasted, and everything was taken from him, including his finest princes, including Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Everybody with me? Thank you for humoring me. I'm sorry for the mistake that I made you read more than was necessary, but that's okay. What does Daniel mean? You see in the back end of the word El. El is Hebrew for God. Dan is Hebrew for judgment. So Daniel means judgment of God. That's what his name means. So Daniel means judgment of God. What judgment? Well, in Daniel 2, we see the judgment of the Gentile kingdoms by the rock. And how does the rock judge them? Destroys them. In Daniel 4, the judgment's on Nebuchadnezzar because he lacked humility before God, and he ate grass for 7 years. And in Daniel 5, the writing on the wall of Belshazzar, because he used and defiled the holy temple ornaments with prostitutes, that judgment, he died that night. It's all in Daniel, which means judgment of God. So what is Daniel about? The judgments of God. And when we get to chapter 2 and we read about those 10 toes, we're going to talk about the judgment God has in store for the 10 Arab and atheist nations that dare to challenge Israel in the next few years of our lives. Okay? What else do we know about Daniel? A lot. That's where we're going to stop. That's a good place to stop. Because when we come back, then we'll get into Daniel and read exactly what Daniel brings to the table. All right? Any questions? So now you should know the history in time and the history in space, who Daniel is, who authored this book, and why it's there. It's been authored by royalty, and it's there to tell us about the judgments of God through time. That's what Daniel's about. Okay? Any questions? So what I'm going to do is ask one of you to close us in prayer. That way Barry can go because he has to go. His bedtime is past his bedtime. And then we can stay a little longer and answer any questions. Kingsley, can you close us in prayer, please?